Let's hear what Álvaro Arbeloa had to say after this clash.
Creo que ha sido una primera parte donde hemos tenido bastante control por momentos, pero nos falta muchísima velocidad en el juego. Ante cualquier bloque bajo, ante cualquier rival que defiende en su campo, o mueves el balón mucho más rápido, o es que te van a defender muy fácil, ¿no? Es algo con lo que tenemos que seguir mejorando, seguir trabajando. Yo creo que nos ha faltado en la primera parte, además de control, mover el balón más rápido y crear más peligro, ¿no? Y bueno, pues eso es una cuestión de concepto, de saber lo que tenemos que hacer, qué es lo que queremos provocar en los rivales. Creo que tenemos muchísimo margen de mejora. Evidentemente, cuando no estás a nuestro nivel, al 100%, es que cualquiera te puede ganar. Fede lleva haciendo mucho esfuerzo, muchos partidos seguidos, con pequeñas molestias, y bueno, pues ha notado lo que lleva sintiendo estas últimas semanas y bueno, pues no sé si como siempre, pero acertada o equivocadamente, pues he preferido no arriesgar con Fede, y después del gol ha sido una decisión más pensando por no arriesgar y que se pudiese lesionar. Bueno, descansó el fin de semana pasado, ¿no? Si no me equivoco. No jugó contra la Real Sociedad, que no era cualquier equipo, y evidentemente pues cuando creemos que no está en condiciones de jugar, pues no vamos a arriesgar, ¿no? No es algo que decida yo solo, que lo hablo con los médicos, lo hablamos con Kylian, y cuando él se siente preparado para jugar, lo hacemos, pero bueno, la semana pasada no jugó contra la Real Sociedad.
Sid Lowe was at the game for us today. Luis Garcia is with us too as we take a look at the table. So it's Real Madrid now just 2 points and a game ahead of Barcelona. Barcelona play that game tomorrow against Levante, and it is a chance to once again leapfrog Real Madrid and go back on top of the table. So we just heard Álvaro Arbeloa there. He'd clearly been asked about Fede Valverde being substituted off after he'd been showing himself to be putting on a good display, as we saw in that assist for Vini's goal. Sid Lowe is at the game for us today. Sid, what's been the reaction after this game from the Madrid aspect?
Well, from a Madrid point of view, of course, the reaction is huge disappointment, but also I think a little bit deeper than just disappointment. I think it's a sense of them regressing back to the way that we'd seen, and the way that we've seen repeatedly throughout the season. There's not really been a period in the season where Madrid have put together a consistent run of good performances. Not necessarily results, because the results have been good, and it was 8 wins in a row in LaLiga before tonight, but good, consistent performances. And I think if you listen to those 3 answers from Arbeloa, obviously you've got the answer about Valverde and taking him off, the answer about the physical condition of Mbappe, and those are 2 kind of momentary answers about what's happening now. But the third one, I thought was really interesting, when he talked about this being a conceptual issue, and about not moving the ball quick enough, not being creative enough. And of course what Arbeloa has tried to do, I think, is protect the back 4 with a muscular midfield. But when you're asked to do something more, when you're asked to build play, when you're asked to be creative, some of those flaws that we've seen all season, we've talked a lot, for example, about the lack of a central midfielder who makes the team play. They came back to the fore tonight against a team that basically allowed Madrid to have a degree of control of the ball, but didn't allow them space into which to play.
Luis, when we saw that first half, Osasuna were getting the better of the chances. It gave Real Madrid that warning shot. They went into the half 1 goal down. Did you expect more from them in the second half of this clash?
Yes, of course, Kay. We expected more from this Real Madrid side from the very beginning. We heard Arbeloa mentioning about how important it was this game. They know they had the opportunity to make a bigger the gap again with Barcelona. Important game when you play in Pamplona, but when you go to this kind of stadium, when you go to this kind of team, you know that first of all you have to match the energy, you have to match the intensity and the fight, because the thing that you're going to fight for sure is that a hostile atmosphere, and of course a team that is ready to give you a competitive game. And we saw at Real Madrid that he wasn't ready for that, because the talent, the quality they got, of course, there is always, or most of the time, is going to be better than what they got in front. But today, if you don't match that intensity, you're going to have problems. That slow move of the ball, I totally agree with Arbeloa. We saw that if you don't move it quickly enough, if you don't make the defense or the midfield of Osasuna have to switch from one side to the other side, it's very easy for them. And in the moment you make a mistake because you put a ball in the middle of the spaces, the transitions are really, really dangerous with players as Osasuna has got on the wide areas very, very quick. So yeah, we were expecting a lot more from the Real Madrid side that didn't show up in the second half either. and it's a big concern because now we saw some players that they get tired because of the demands of the competition, and on midweek you're gonna face against a team that is gonna come with a knife into the mouth and ready to give you another top and competitive game.
The conceptual problem for me, of course, with VAR is that when you slow something down or when you freeze frame something, quite often the contact looks far more than it really is. But I must say, in the very short and on a very small screen replay that I saw, I thought in the end it probably was the right decision, but it was a little bit light for my liking.
And in fairness to Sid, obviously he has just seen that replay on a small screen. He did tell us in the broadcast that he was at the other end of the pitch when it actually happened. He didn't have like a bird's eye view. But you've seen those replays numerous times now, Steve.
Yeah. Sid, you got there in the end. You got there in the end. Yeah,
I could.
and that's the beauty of what we saw happening here. You know, for one split second, it's a yellow for diving, and then of course, fortunately, we have VAR, and we see Courtois stands on his toes. He can't go anywhere. What's Courtois? Right. 14 stone? Good luck moving when you've got 14 stone on the end of your toe. So, anyway, you got there, Sid. That's what it matters.
Did they get it right for you, Luis?
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, I think he got it right. But for me, the concern is the lack of consistency with the referees. Last week, we saw another tap even bigger than this one in the game between Barcelona and Girona. And the VAR, after the goal conceded by Barcelona, didn't go the referee to make the call, to see that it was a big tap outside of the box to Koundé. So if today that small tapping into the box is they receive the call to go back to the VAR, that's where I don't understand when is going to be enough to be a penalty or considered as a fault, inside or outside. That's what it concerns the most. Where is really the consistency between the referees? And in the end, VAR helps, but at the end of it is the referee's interpretation, the one who has to decide. The call on the VAR sometimes is a little bit tricky.
Sid, let's get to some of those questions about the players. We mentioned the Fede Valverde point, but what about the Mbappe point and playing the full 90? Arbeloa coming back and saying what he did about this. Can you offer us a little bit more about what was said there?
Yeah, so essentially what's been happening is that Real Madrid have known that Kylian Mbappe has got a bit of a knee issue, and he's had it for a long time. And of course, we saw him miss a couple of games just before Christmas. We saw him miss the Real Sociedad game a week ago, and that Arbeloa has been conscious of trying to protect him. And as he said in that answer, this has been a discussion with the fitness staff, it's been a discussion with the medical staff, and a discussion with Kylian Mbappe himself, and making those decisions. And given that, and given the way we saw Mbappe today, the fact that he looked a bit slow, that he had one or two little moments where he broke away from people, but very, very few of them. It seemed a bit strange not to take him off tonight, given that he wasn't playing particularly well, given that you were looking for a way back into the game, and maybe you would look at it with different players. And that's why Arbeloa was talking about it in more general terms. Now, of course, one of the issues they've got is that what Mbappe has is problems with his knee, rather than a really obvious diagnosable problem that says, right, 2 weeks off and you'll be fine, or 3 weeks off you'll be fine, or go under the knife and you'll be fine. It's more that, okay, this is irritating you, this is limiting you, this is preventing you from playing at your best. So you have to manage it almost on a day-by-day basis. Now, underlying this, of course, is that doubt about how they managed it just before Christmas when he played Copa del Rey games, as he was trying to chase that record that Cristiano Ronaldo had, and whether that was the right thing to do then. But tonight, it's really about Arbeloa. I think it's about Arbeloa looking at this and thinking, well, we need a goal, and even if Mbappe isn't in great shape, he's the one that's most likely to get it, and it didn't pay off.
Yeah, we're seeing these goals from Vinny and just the best of him under his new manager, Sid. Yeah,
and I think, we were talking about this when we pre-game this evening. I think there's two things that are happening with Vinicius under Arbeloa. One of them is if you like, the emotional work that Arbeloa has done, which is essentially, look, put in the most simple terms, Arbeloa has turned up and said to Vinny, you're great, you're brilliant, you're going to play all the time, I trust you, there won't be any friction between us, I'm on your side. That's the bottom line. Then there's been, I think, a tactical element to it, which I think is linked to that, which has been to say, you won't need to do all the chasing down. You won't necessarily need to do some of the work that Xabi Alonso wanted you to do. You won't necessarily need to do the tracking back. We will liberate you from some of that. And that's, of course, one of the reasons why Arbeloa has been going through this three-man midfield to try and protect the back four and effectively have Mbappe and Vinicius play with freedom. So those two things, I think, have helped. And I think there's no doubt about it that with Vinicius, a big part of his game is emotional. And what Arbeloa has done, and obviously the big question now is is this a permanent change? Is this something that you can maintain over time throughout the season that's good not just for Vinicius, and this is really important, that it's good not just for Vinicius but for the whole team? That's the question mark. But in the short term, of course, there's no doubt that Vinicius looks happier and looks freer than he did before.
Real Madrid, I think they didn't deserve much today. Maybe a draw if they managed to get it, but I think that Raul Garcia deserved a fantastic goal.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a massive win, isn't it, Sid, for Osasuna, given how long it had been since the last time they'd beaten Real Madrid.
Yeah, 11 years since they've last beaten Real Madrid. Now, there's this phrase that's always trotted out about El Sadar, that this is one of those places that's difficult to go. It's one of the places that's hostile for Real Madrid. It's one of those places that if Madrid are going to win the league, they win it at El Sadar. And you have this kind of image of this being the place where they go and they lose. But they hadn't lost for 11 years there. Their results have been really, really good there. 6 wins and 4 draws in the last 10 visits. And this was, I think, from Osasuna's point of view, huge because of that. And you could tell in the stadium, in terms of the atmosphere, that the Real Madrid game is the biggest one for them. Truth be told, they do not like Real Madrid. There's all sorts of reasons for it, and they really don't. But I think there was a little bit more than that as well. It's also about Osasuna, who a month and a half ago looked like they might be dragged into a relegation fight. They're now looking at this and thinking, hang on, there's half a chance of a European position. They've now gone 6 games unbeaten. They haven't lost at home since November. They're a team that are starting to get the very, very most out of the qualities they have. Now, they're not the most talented team in LaLiga, but they've got a handful of very good players and they're extremely well organised. And I think right now, at least, they're in a position of real optimism, but in terms of looking ahead to what awaits for them for the rest of this season.
Yeah, to Sid's point, they were close, just as close to the relegation spots as they were to Europe going into this game. Now they're just that little bit closer to Europe or Osasuna, so congratulations to them.